Excellent. So, welcome to my talk that is called How to Build Your Own Infosec Company. And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk about building like a very specific kind of information security company because we have enough of the other ones, I believe. We're going to talk about the boutique and not the behemoth. And I'm going to elaborate on what that actually means. Quickly before that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mario. And it's the first time that I do a talk like this because usually I do technical talks. And then I did a couple of talks to just piss people off, and that worked really well. And this is my first actually constructive talk, so bear with me if not everything is perfect. And if everything's like weird or you can't follow, just like wave or make yourself known or something like that. I was a researcher once. I don't do research anymore. I was or am still employed at the Ruhr University in Bochum. I wrote a PhD thesis about cross-site scripting. Yes, that's possible. And what I'm mostly doing right now is I run a company, and the company is in Berlin. We do penetration tests and source code audits and other stuff, and it's called Cure 53. We're a small company. We're like 18 people, and pretty much every single person we have on board is a technical person. We don't have any managers or marketing people or anything else like that because I don't believe you actually need them. And I want to talk about why you don't need them and why this actually makes a difference. I've been giving a couple of talks at other conferences. I've mentioned mostly technical talks or talks for this other purpose. I maintain a couple of open source projects. One of them you might actually know. Maybe you even use it. It's Dump Purify, which is like a client-side sanitizer and pretty much prevents cross-site scripting in all sorts of situations where otherwise you can't. And I also have an email address, so if you have any feedback for me after this talk, then you can write me an email. I don't use Twitter anymore because it's kind of not really making any sense anymore. So email is right now the only way of actually reaching out, but you should be able to do that. So this talk is basically advice that I found on something that is pretty much anecdotal. So this is like the stuff that I learned over the past 11 to 12 years where I was building my own company, and it worked for me. So your mileage after this might vary, so these things that I tell you might not work for you. I might not care about this after all, but I'm just going to tell you what did work for me, and maybe this is helpful for you as well if you have that very goal that we're going to be talking about. Let's first of all find out who's actually here. Who here is a penetration tester? Raise your hand. Like almost everybody's a penetration. Who's a developer? Excellent. Who's a ISO, CISO managerial position? Excellent. Is there any bug bounty hunters? Not that many. Other conferences, other countries, they have more. Anyway, who here is employed? Who likes being employed? Dangerous question. Interesting. Excellent. Who has their own thing running? Excellent. Good. Not that many people. Maybe it's more next year. So, before we dive directly into the topic, I would like to kind of show you at first how this whole thing is structured. The first act of 4 is the onboarding. I want to tell you about how to actually get into this particular position, why we're here, why we talk about this, why I believe that this is an important topic. And then we move right into the second act, into building your own security company, getting to the point of having one. Then we talk about the third act, where you run the security company, because getting one is easy, but running it is a bit harder. And the final act is the most important one, because when you have all that figured out, it's about how to stay sane, how to not go crazy, because that's actually not that easy. Let's talk about the onboarding, and let's talk about why we're here, what the motivation is, and why I actually came here to present this talk, which is, as mentioned, only for this conference so far, and let's see how it goes. My reasoning for this was because why not? Because I had the problem at some point a couple of years ago, pretty much 11, 12 years ago, that I was not fulfilled with being an employee. I hated it. I was first a developer at a company in Cologne, and I was writing like websites that nobody really used, and there was like this other dude coming in, and I hated him, and then I quit my job, and then went to a different company, and I hated it there as well, and then I decided at some point, this is not for me. I don't like employment. I don't like to report up to others. I don't like being forced to work with others. I want to have like more decision-making capabilities. I want to have more freedom in what I do. And the only choice was to go freelance, to go build my own company. And I was scared back then. I had no idea about anything. I was like a freshling, and I still did it because why not? Then I entered the startup scene. I failed miserably, and the startup that we built was a catastrophe. Then we sold it and became like a portal for old people, which is also interesting. And then slowly, the first building blocks of putting something together that was my own appeared. And over the course of the years, I often talk to a couple of other people and says like, hey, what are you doing with your job? And so on, yeah, I'm working with this company, we do pen tests and stuff like this. Some people were happy. Some people were fulfilled with the employment, but other people were unhappy. It's like, I fucking hate my job. It's ridiculous. We don't get to do the research we want to do. I get not enough money. My superiors are annoying me, like the reporting chain. I don't like it so much. It's like, why don't you just quit and do something on your own? Yeah, because it's hard. It's like, it's not that hard. Maybe it's not that hard. And I was thinking, like, why would you complain all year about how shitty your job is when you can actually construct your own thing? And then I was looking out for templates and for instructions, and everything you would find is pretty much pointing you into building like the classic template company that everybody else has already. But I wanted to build something else. And I did. And that's why I feel entitled to give this talk. And I would like to tell you how I actually did it. And want to show you that you can do this as well. If you ever arrive at the point of not finding your employment fulfilling anymore, don't worry. You can do your own thing. It's actually not that hard. Let's take a look at an example company. I just like randomly picked this company, NCC. NCC is a huge company that everybody loves. They have 35 offices across the world. There's like a group meanwhile, and they cater to like 15,000 clients. There's like a ridiculous amount of clients, 15,000. It's a massive corporation. It's not like an Infosec shack with a couple of cool people sitting in the cellar and hacking. Nope, it's a massive company compound, world spanning, 15,000 clients. Holy shit. So, this is not probably the type of company I'm going to be talking about, as you can imagine. I mean, they don't really, I'm not really sure if they even do pen testing anymore. I think they just like buy stuff left and right. No criticism. If that's fulfilling for you, that's fine. Not judging here. In 2006, they bought Recall, Total Information Management, Escrow Division, Source Harbor, Secure Test, Site Confidence, Escrow. I have no idea what these are. Like Next Generation Security Software, ISEC Partners. Oh, they were quite good. SDLC, Meridian, Axona, Escrow, Madison. They were also quite good. Interpreters, Ford Consult. Like they just like buy stuff. So they're not really an Infosec company anymore. Like, at some point, Infosec falls out. But what they really do is global business. Fair enough. It's not the kind of company that we're going to be talking about. Here's what people believe the typical Infosec company is actually looking like. Cool kids. Just like doing stuff with their spray-painted keyboards, like that makes any sense. And just like hacking away, and eventually a pen test report falls out and everybody's safer afterwards. Here's what a classic Infosec security really looks like. A very diverse boardroom, because this guy's hair is a little bit different from this guy's hair, and he also has hair. So, this is reality, and the other thing is perception, or the idea of what we actually want to have. But I think this is the actual case here. And why not? If you want to do this, fine. I'm not judging. Of course I'm judging. So what I'm going to talk about is not this kind of company, not this kind of template company that is optimized for growth or for an exit or for selling or something like this, or for world-spanning operations. I'm going to talk about the boutique, because I think we need more infosecurity boutiques. And you're like, what? And it's like boutique, a small company that has like 5 to 20 people max. It's team focus, where everybody knows everyone and everybody knows exactly why they are there because of their skills and the good fit. And not being data-driven about numbers and making revenue and increasing the margin and all this stuff. I'm talking about small companies, like just a couple of examples. Security Labs in Berlin, for example. They're amazing. Or Enable Security in Berlin. Or X41DSec. This is a couple of companies we work together with, and they're similarly small, and they do similarly well. And there's a couple of other ones out there, maybe even your own one that is exactly like this. 5 to 20 people, highly technical, delivering good work. And it's fascinating. Because this is easy to build. And you can do this as well if you just want to. Again, the question, why are we here? Why are we delivering this talk? Is it just about judging about larger companies or something like this? No. A little bit, maybe. Because not everything is always great with large corporations. And I hear this from clients. Clients who come to us and basically say, well, we were with this other company before and it was so complicated and it's so expensive. The processes were taking so long and the bugs that we get were so shitty. So we wanted to try a smaller company, and then they are happy because they receive a report that contains actual information. And I sometimes have the feeling the problem with bigger is, it's not better, it's just bigger. Like a long, admin-heavy process, tons of paperwork, lots of people involved who even don't know the field. I had a sales call with a dude who wanted to sell me like a scanner, and I told him about a fake website that we're running. It's just like, yeah, our website is running PHP. And he was like, of course, PAP, that is our specialty. It's like, what? This is like, hang out the phone. This is like incredible. Very expensive contracts. We had situations where our client was telling us, the other company, they were like 20 times as expensive for the same service. Like, oh yeah, of course. And I mean, they need to finance the huge building and the flags in front of the building and the secretary and the marketing people and the cars and all that. And their indestructible trucks and whatnot. All these things. So in a way, you get to the point when exclusively working with large companies that you create a situation where you can have security for the big and security for the rich. And the large corporation doesn't give a fuck if it gives $1 million to another large corporation because they have those millions anyway. It's just like pocket money. Whereas for a small company or group of activists or open source project, they just can't. They can't reach out to these huge behemoths and get decent services because all they get is, well, not enough bang for the buck, I feel. As mentioned, this is anecdotal data I'm working with, so I don't have real data. It's just what I learned over the past years. You don't even know who's going to be on the test for you. Like, you don't know who's going to pen test your application, if that person's actually skilled. It's completely unclear who's going to run the test against you in many situations. And what falls out is very generic reports with lots of useless text and cake charts and pie charts and all these things that don't really help. And sometimes I have the feeling that the larger corporations, they value financial growth over everything else. And as mentioned, you oftentimes might not get enough bang for the buck, and that sucks. I'm not saying that all this is better per default in a small company, in a boutique. But it can be better if you just want to. And if you're running your own boutique, you have this under control. It's your decision then. There might be very short processes. They are possible. Almost no hierarchies. Often all the people that are involved in the test and the assessment are experts. And the client will notice that. Contracts can be much cheaper. You can offer a pen test for 5 days. If the client is poor and doesn't have much money, give them 5 days or 4 days. It's better than nothing. And they at least get like an initial assessment. Larger companies might not be able to do this because it's simply not valuable for them. So in a way, you create a situation where security is available for everybody, even for those who don't have big pockets and can't spend millions. And that's a good thing. You're diversifying, you're democratizing the whole thing. Most importantly, the client knows who they deal with because you can tell them, oh, in this particular test, we're going to have file descriptor and Masato, and they know their shit, and the client says, oh, yes, we always want to be tested by them. And then they're happy because they know that experts working with them and not random names from a random company that they're never going to see on the street or anywhere else. You can individualize the reports, the services. You can do things that others can't without a massive administrative effort. And you're working not towards numbers, but you're working towards good ethical standards, if you want to, and sustainability. And you value these over growth. And clients might get more bang for the buck, which is a fine thing, and everybody wins in the end. If done right, of course. So now let's talk about my interpretation of how to do it right. And I might be completely wrong. Probably I'm wrong. But at least that's what I experienced in the past 11 years. And let's summarize that. Let's talk about building the whole thing. First of all, you need to want the whole thing. You need to kind of want to create your own company. My motivator back then, and usually still is rage. Like, I get best when I hate things. And back then, I hated being in a company because I hated that other douchebag coworker and I wanted to leave. So I had motivation. I was like, fuck that guy. And it worked. It was good. It's like, rage can be good if you channel it the right way. You need to also know why you want it, what kind of reasons you have, and what you want to reach for yourself. Maybe it's just freedom, maybe you want to get rich, maybe you want to have an exit at some point, maybe you want to build a product, maybe you just want to hang with the people that you used to work with and kind of create your own thing, not report upwards anymore, and all these things. The how you do it, is not super important. First, you need to know why you actually want to do this. You need to be clear with yourself about the motivation. You need to know, do I want to become a suit? Or do I want to walk around in wellies? Do I want to build a template company that is optimized for growth? Or do I want to build a Michelin star restaurant? Do I want to make an exit and sell for 20 mil? Or do I want it to be my baby? Do you want it to be a keeper? You need to know where you want to stand ethically. Are you going to sell exploits to the mob so people get killed? Or criminals get caught, sure. And, you need to know these things. You need to know the framework of what you're trying to produce. You need to know what your own goal is. For us today, the goal is to build a keeper. Something that you're not gonna sell because you grow it and you keep it dear. It's like your heart-shaped box, your thing that you want to have, that thing that you built. That's the goal for this particular situation, because that was the goal for me. I wanted to build something that was my thing, where I had my freedom and my liberties, and that I could keep. We're not intending to sell. Like, who will we sell to anyway? First of all, you need to kind of grow your name. You need to come up with a name. The name Q53 back then was pretty much randomly chosen because I assumed that it would be like a one-man show, and then I went to the business center at the city council, and they're like, yeah, you need a company name, but I don't have a company name. Oh, then I need to make one up, and I made something up with like Cure and alphanumeric and say Cure, say twisted, and it was Q53. It was a decision that was made in 5 minutes, and I had no clue whether they would stick or not. But then people were wondering, like, why are you called like this? It's like, I don't really know, it was an accident. Yeah, we were wondering about this, and then it got stuck in our heads, so that's kind of good. So the name is not super important. It's of advantage if you have one. But once you have one, you need to grow it. You need to start building up reputation. That's easy, because these days you can attack random websites just so, because they have bug bounty programs, and you can make yourself a name. If you're good, people will recognize you. You will get invited to private programs, you will get your first contracts and all these things. Publish research, publish stuff. Not the nonsense that you would find from many of the XSS wizards out there. I'm not calling names anymore. I'm kind of done with that. But like actual quality posts, and people will read them, people will recognize them, reference to them, and this will grow your name. Partake in discussions, talk to people on conferences, on meetups, on chapter meetings. If Gareth, for example, Gareth Hayes from the UK, who is like a wizard, an actual wizard in cross-site scripting, if he follows you on Twitter, then you know you came far already, because then you have a certain amount of relevance. That's great. So grow your name, but grow it cleanly. Write papers if you have the chance, if you're somehow connected to academia, win hacking challenges, engage with others, partner up, do things together with other people, stay connected. Or speak on conferences. Start small, build your way up. Maybe reject investor money, because then you lose your freedom, and try to kind of grow your own name organically. That is possible. You can do this. A lot of people did it before. You can do this as well. Then you go and register your business, or you do this before, or whatever you feel the time is right. You should kind of follow a lean approach. Like, no, don't go for like, this huge stock market share blah thing. Just like start a small company, as small as it can be, because you can still change it. As long as you stay flexible and agile, that is perfectly fine. I have no idea how it works here. I hear that it's hard in a couple of countries, it's less hard in different countries, so I can't give you any advice on how to register your own company in the ideal shape of the company in Portugal, because I really don't know, but I can tell you a couple of things about Germany, but that's probably not that super interesting to me. Anyway, once you have done that, pretty much the formalities, and have like a certain bit of reputation, which is not hard to achieve, you need to run the whole thing. You need to kind of keep the company running and kind of keep getting clients for you and potentially your team. And that might be hard. The first client is usually the most important client. And sometimes the way to get this first client is weird, and that's okay. So we got our first client by me tweeting a lot. Back then I still had Twitter, and was like tweeting here and tweeting there about like weird ways of executing JavaScript where it shouldn't be possible. And then someone talked to us. The someone was Microsoft and says like, dude, that's like cool stuff. You want to work with us? And it's like, sure, why not? And then we worked together. I can talk about this. This is public meanwhile, but it happened via Twitter. And they just like caught up on the stuff, and then they sent me a DM. It's like, dude, you want to have a contract with us? And like, sure, why not? Absolutely. And then we did it. And then others came, and they basically saw me rambling on Twitter, and there was enough already. I think it's still enough today. The first client is, needless to say, usually the most important one. Because they are going to help you through the first month, through the first year. It helps if your first client is maybe someone you already know, you have been like drinking adventures with, or have been working with together, or maybe you're like a group of people who kind of want to create something together in the first place, and have some connections. But that's important. Ideally, you pick a client that is like friendly towards you, that you know already, and that kind of knows that you're young, that you're like a small company, and helps you in the first months, maybe in the first year. With a client like that, you get pure gold, because that's exactly what you need to survive the first hardships. If you're like really unlucky, then your first client is an asshole. We're going to talk about assholes specifically later on, but I hope for you that this is not going to be the case, and usually you have to be like very, very, very unlucky for this to be the case. And as mentioned, often the way to find the first client, or for the first client to find you, might be quite weird. So networking, being connected, and just being loud and being seen, having visibility is key. And if you have that, then at some point it's going to happen. Then, and that is like one of the most important things, because I see this missing with a lot of people, is to get organized. Getting organized is so hard. Like, people just don't manage to organize themselves. It's ridiculous. Like, I see people using the calendar like they're a 5-year-old, and I'm like, oh my god, what are you doing? Of course we have time zone differences. Jesus Christ, you're in PSD and we're not. Like, what kind of invitations are you sending us? And stuff like this. And sometimes people don't even have their tools straight. we started to do something quite early on because we started using Google Docs. And not everybody likes them, but I think it's like one of the best possibilities that are there right now. I don't want to make advertising or anything like that, just like saying for us it worked the best because pretty much all of our clients use Google Docs as well. So we had an easy time sharing stuff and collaborating on stuff and doing these things. So that was like one of the best decisions that we made early on, just like get one of these corporate accounts over at Google Drive and just like use it. And all of a sudden we were connected to so many things. We were actually genuinely considering to use something like Microsoft Office 365-ish or something that was like close to it back then, but now definitely not. Anyway, so you should pretty much choose what you hate the least because there's a lot of Office solutions out there. Most of them are catastrophic and extremely insecure, and I think Google Cloud or Google Docs or Google Drive still comes closest. No advertising, I'm just saying, just speaking from my own experience. Don't go niche. Don't go something weird like this one unique Office solution from Panama. I'm sorry. Just like it's not gonna fly because they're gonna go bankrupt in half a year and then you have a problem. This can also happen, of course, with the big providers. Like the other day I received an email from Google Drive says like, dude, we're gonna disable SMS calendar notifications on 7th of January. It's like, fuck! I need this feature. I'm paying for this. Yeah, we're gonna disable it. Learn more. You just install the app on your cell phone. That's gonna be fine. No, I don't want it. No, anyway. It can happen still. As mentioned, the majority of our clients are actually using Google Drive, and they also use Slack. Everybody loves Slack. And what we do right now is we stay in touch, we stay close with them by just sharing a Slack channel. And they love that. It's like, oh my God, we have the pen test team in our Slack. We can ask them questions all the time. That's awesome. In many other situations, that wouldn't be possible. But they love it. And that makes the difference. But still, you need to get organized. You need to choose your tools, and you need to use your tools the right way. And that's often hard. If you use them, and if you have made your choice, you should use the hell out of them. Just like pretty much find 1 or 2 or maybe 3 tools and then use only them. Don't spread out with like millions of tools and monitoring interfaces and tracking there. Just like, we don't even run Google Analytics on our homepage because we don't care if any people are going there. So only use the tools that you really need, but those you really need to use as much as you can. So you trusted with them, you understand them, you notice what all the benefits are and use them for yourself. And the most important thing with getting organized and using your tools, start tracking absolutely everything. I'm not talking about visitors on your website. No one gives a shit. I'm talking about conversations, about stuff that you negotiate with your clients. Have everything in writing. Take a note of absolutely everything. If your client over the phone tells you something ABC, so like, okay, can you take this and send me via email because I don't accept agreements via phone. I have to write it down. I have to store it somewhere. And afterwards, you have to find where it was because you will eventually get confronted with that and the client will challenge you and tell you some bullshit and you have to prove that this is not the case. So this is extremely important. This takes time and practice. So I recommend to learn to work with your tools and your organization as early on as possible, your self-organization. And that's really the hardest part. And for people joining our team, it usually takes like, I don't know, a quarter, sometimes half a year until they get to the point of saying, no, I get it. No, I use Calendar and all the other tools and I actually really understand them and I can be very productive with them. But that takes time. The time is worth being taken. This guy, like, I actually had a conversation with someone who was like quite fresh on the market. And he was like, I don't need a calendar because I can remember all the appointments in my head. It's like, what? No, you can't. You're a moron. That's impossible. The only thing that you're telling me with this is that you're not busy. Because it's impossible. It's impossible to keep all these things in your head. You need a tool that reminds you constantly of what to do next. I have the calendar, I have a to-do list, and I have my inbox. And these are the 3 tools that I use to stay organized, and they work for me. Your mileage may vary, but I could never remember these things in my head. Know that I don't have to. I have space up for other stuff, and that's good. So if anybody tells you, no, I don't need this tool, it's like, no, absolutely not. This is idiotic. In some years you will realize, and it's going to be painful. But don't overdo it with the tools. There's no need to kind of buy into all those shitty little helper apps that are all over that try to sell you this and try to sell you that. Like the market-leading document management cloud using quantum-ready artificial intelligence on the blockchain. You don't need it. No one needs it. There is no need for these kinds of software. You need simple tools like a calendar, document management, and a decent email client for grown-up people. And then you should be good. And maybe a to-do list, but that is usually integrated already. And then you have everything that you need. That is pretty much our tool chain. Oh yeah, we use something to chat, Slack or something like this. Fair enough. The most important tool, however, is a behavioral tool that you need to kind of train yourself on actually applying to whatever you do. And I know there's like very motivating talks about this already, like TED and TEDx talks and all this stuff, but I can't just like stress it not enough, and that is like mailbox zero. Try to work with mailbox zero. It's going to change your life. I didn't believe it in the beginning. It was like, oh, so many mails, and click and click and click, and then respond to this one. And eventually I tried it, and it changed my life. Like organization-wise, productivity-wise, and work-wise, mailbox zero changed my life. Basically, my mission right now is I get up in the morning, I bring the kid to school, and then I sit down in the office and start working. And by the end of the day, when it's like getting slowly towards 6 o'clock, I want to have an empty mailbox. I don't want to have this clutter lying around, robbing my sleep overnight. I want to make sure for today, I did everything that I could. There's like a few mails that I still need to respond to tomorrow, so I start there, like maybe 1 or 2, but the rest is gone. It's archived. And you should use archiving as much as you can with your email business, because you're going to drown in emails. It's going to be ridiculous. Archive as much as you can. Make sure that there's no unread stuff. Just like someone responds to you, respond back, archive immediately. So this thing is out of your sight. Because that person will eventually get back to you. And if not, then it's not your fault. You just bought yourself time. It's good. It's okay. If they forget to write you back, fuck it. Doesn't matter. Then wasn't that important anyway. The ball is not in your corner anymore, and that's key. If you sometimes, and that's what I do, if you don't have time to respond because the question is stupid or you're annoyed or you have other things on the radar, respond with a question. Buy yourself some time. Just like play it back and just like wait it out, because then they're going to think about this like, no, we have to kind of come up with a response. How are we going to do it tomorrow? And you bought yourself time. You basically can lean back. It's like, I'm done. I just like responded and that's good. So you can do that. That's legal. That's fine. No one's going to be angry about that. I do this all the time. I'm not motivated to respond to an email. I just like formulate another question and there you go, archive. And that works. It really works. Try to kind of get there. Try to slowly work towards mailbox zero, because it's really going to help. And you're going to notice you're going to have less stress, because there's nothing floating around in your head anymore that tells you, oh my God, I still need to do this, I still need to do that. Needless to say, after 6 o'clock every day, you're still going to get tons of emails. Just ignore them. Just like don't open your mailbox after 6 o'clock. Just like whatever. I know there's time zones. I know there's a client in California, but just don't respond. Just do it the next morning when you're fresh again and everything is fine. Don't do the mistake of checking your mailbox every half an hour until it's 9 o'clock in the evening, because that's going to kill you. We're going to talk about this later on. Let it fill up overnight. Come back the next morning. Brush your teeth, do the other business, and then look at the stuff with a fresh eye, and it's going to be much easier to maintain. Maybe you had a grudge before, and then that day you don't anymore because you slept over it, and you write like a very cool response, a frosty response instead of a heated one, which is also good. Once you have actually mastered mailbox zero, I think you're ready to kind of tackle bigger dragons and slay them. Because then you have the possibility to channel your work in a way that you have maximum efficiency. Or maybe not maximum, but you're getting close to there. And then you can do bigger things. You can take on bigger projects, bigger tasks. And you will notice over time that your capabilities of handling projects will move from like a small 5-day website pen test to like a 50-day massive code audit with 8 people involved. That of course takes time. That takes a couple of years, but this is one essential tool to actually get there. Avoid overhead, avoid clutter, get organized, and then you can do these things. It's possible. There's a couple of other things that of course you need to take care of. I'm not going to go too much in depth because I think you can fill an entire talk with these, or even an entire book. Like security, how do you secure your stuff? And redundancy, how do you make sure that a destroyed hard disk doesn't destroy the entirety of your work? With security, I know a couple of people who say like, well, my laptop, it has like, Cubes OS, and then like containers, and it's like NSA safe. So it's like, yeah, cool. So fucking what? Like the NSA is not on my threat model. I don't care what they do. We sell bugs and web applications to the clients and then they fix them. The half-life of this information is very, very low compared to other bugs and other systems, of course. We don't really matter. And if you do like a small Infosec company, you're not important enough. You don't really matter. That's fine. If you sell exploits, for example, you want to make sure that those exploits don't get refound, don't get shared, and then don't get burned. That's a different situation. But if you're working in a pen testing field and you intend to have the bugs that you filed to get fixed, then the NSA is not your problem. So you don't have to prepare against the NSA. You can prepare against the threat model of your neighbor's child. That's also okay. Well, maybe not, but close that. So don't sacrifice too much productivity over security. I know that sounds weird from a security person, but don't overdo it with the paranoia. Find your threat model, decide what kind of information you have is relevant for what player, and will they go the extra mile to get it? And if they won't, then you can also kind of just like not protect yourself against that, because it's just voodoo after all. As for the redundancy, I'm also not going to talk about this too long. Just like make sure that everything that you have is mirrored, backed up, ideally somewhere on a different place, not in your flat or office, and offsite backup, and so on and so on. We were using SVN for quite some time for this. We're using Git, which is quite awesome for that, actually also to manage your document and different revisions of documents. Sometimes it's a pain, but it's not enough of a pain to not do it anymore. So we're actually going with this, have a couple of remote repos, and hope that they're fairly well secured, not against the NSA, but against the regular threat model, and usually we're fine. But the most important thing is plan for fast recovery. Because nothing is worse to, for example, travel around with your travel laptop where you have like parts of your work and then the hard disk dies, and you're like, shit, what am I going to do right now? I'm in a different country for the next 6 days. I'm like that work-wise. I can't do anything at all. Plan for this. Plan for this chaos to happen. Plan for this to actually occur because hardware breaks. And when your workstation breaks, or your company server, or your office server breaks, or your laptop breaks, it might be devastating. So always think about how fast can you get from the point of total data destruction on one device to getting back on track. I actually measured this for myself. I actually did the maneuver once and deleted all my shit and took a fresh laptop and measured the time that it would take me to get back to be productive, and it was 6 hours. I think this can be optimized, but after 6 hours I was back. So I lost quarter of a day, so that was fine. If you get to this particular value or are already there, then you don't have this problem anymore. But try it once. Play the chaos monkey. Try the monkey before the monkey tries you, because it will come one day. It's not a threat actor, it's just like, it will happen. And now, since we figured out how to roughly have like a template on how to build things, how your motivation needs to look like, how to actually deal with your first clients and kind of build it slowly, maybe even start thinking about building a team and getting yourself organized. Now let's assume that you are at the point where you have a good and constant flow of work that is coming in, something that keeps you busy and the rest of your team busy. Now the question is like, how do you stay sane? Because, to be quite honest, this is quite a grind. And it's usually not physical work, so you're not like digging shovels and stuff like this, but you sit in front of the computer all day and you get in touch with all sorts of people from all over the world that tells you the weirdest horse shit, like you can't imagine. It's incredible what they come up with. And you need to be the sponge, you need to be the person that kind of stays sane over all that and manages to kind of pass on that information to your team without being insulting or pushing to them. And that's a hard job. You're pretty much the membrane because the huge world of crazy clients and your small team that you love and that you want to keep thriving. And that can be very, very hard. The problem is that the amount of diversity out there that you get from people and the amount of ideas on what you should deliver and what they expect from you and what kind of magic they want to have from you, it is incredible. And it is pressuring. And sometimes this gets close to you, this gets under your skin. Because clients will at some point try to manipulate you into doing things that they don't pay for, or that you can't do, or that you shouldn't do, and they will use all the means. That is even something that is like culturally sensitive, because in some countries clients will pull other tricks on you than in the other country. I'm not going to give any examples, but there is definitely behavioral patterns depending on the country where your client is from, and you will have to kind of deal with that. You are the membrane between the horse shit and your brilliant team, and that's hard. And it got to me multiple times. That actually got me close to burnout at some point because I couldn't take it anymore. And then I said, like, fuck that shit. Like, I can't have this. I'm going to do something. I'm going to talk about later what that is. And that's also important. So be aware that this is going to be hard. The more clients you talk to, the more weird pressure you're going to get. And you shouldn't be getting this under your skin. At the very beginning, when you have like a handful of clients, this is going to be peachy dandy. You probably know them personally. It's like your first client and your second client. Maybe you hang out with them and go drinking or something like this, or you hang out in their office and you have a good atmosphere. They are unlikely to screw you over. But once you get more reach and more reputation, then the weird ones will come. And I guarantee you, they will come and they will try to screw you over. There's no way you can escape that. Like once they see you, they will target you and they will try to eat you. And that's not going to be nice. The first ones are going to be nice, but the flood that's going to come at you at some point can be very devastating. So I took some time and sat down and looked at all the emails that I've been exchanging with clients. I wanted to kind of classify the different types of assholes. Asshole is, by the way, an abbreviation for asterisk hole, so don't take this as the offensive version. Well, of course it's not. And I came up with 4, and I'm pretty sure we can come up with more. We had a conversation already earlier that day where we talked about like even more types of assholes. And this is the 4 ones that we encounter the most often. The first one, my favorite one. They come to saying, we want to have a penetration test. It's like, sure, we can do this. Let's have like a conversation about what you actually want to have tested and how much is there and lines of code and so on and so on. And then we do all this and we send over the quote and we have all our standard daily rates. And then they get back to us like, oh, your daily rates are very, very high. It's like, no, they're not, because I know what the competitors cost. Oh, yeah, but for us, they're very high. It's like, okay, yeah, but we don't really care. They're our daily rates. Are you trying to devaluate our work? Are you trying to tell us that you figured out, after us working in this field for 11 fucking years, you came and figured out that we should actually charge less because you're so special? Sometimes they have to do this. You know, there's procurement, and procurement kind of needs to do these things. And the funniest case that we had once that was so good. So we had like a deal with a company from Europe, and they wanted like a C or C++ audit. And we knew we were the only company in the race because there was something that we figured out. We developed it together, and I sent a quote just pro forma, and I sent it in, and I get a call from one of the developers. It's like, hey, procurement is trying to reach you. It's like, okay, how? Yeah, they've been talking on your mailbox. It's like, what? On my mailbox. Do you think I listen to my mailbox? I don't listen to my mailbox. It's like, yeah, they talked on your mailbox, and they really need to talk to you. Can I tell them that I can reach you right now in this moment? It's like, sure, whatever. Phone was ringing again. Procurement was on. It's like, Mr. Heiderich, your prices are too high. It's like, But there's a couple of other companies in the race as well, and they're much cheaper. It's like, oh, you fucking liar, there's not. I know this for a fact. I didn't tell him. And I was like, yeah, so if you could go down a little bit, that would be really great. It's like, how about no? Yeah, but then the other company will get the job. Okay. So you don't want to go down? Nope. Okay. So I take it you don't really want that job? That's accurate, sir. Okay. Half an hour later, the PO was on the table, and we had the job. Because he called his boss, and his boss was like, are you crazy? And then it was done. And that happens all the time. Procurement and your clients will try to manipulate you into being cheaper than you should be. And you probably put thought into your daily rates, and they make sense. And then they come and kind of swing themselves up to the high horse and tell you, no, this just doesn't fly. That's number one. The second one, we had this just recently. Your report is very, very bad. We're not going to pay you. We expected so much more. Oh my God, are we disappointed? It's like, yeah, then just like give us realistic scope. We reached out to you, we talked about you with the expectations that you have and everything else. Everything is formalized, everything is on paper. We did exactly what you asked us for. But we expected like a critical. Yeah, when there is no critical, we can't make one up. There is no magical critical tree. We're not going to pay you. Of course you will, because we have a contract and we have proof of delivery. And then eventually they pay. Ridiculous. It's again trying to squeeze something out of you that you don't want and that you don't have to do. Have a clear contract, have a good quote where everything is clarified, and then this is not going to happen. And if it happens, you just kick them out. My favorite one, number 3. Sure, next week's test is going to happen. We had this in the calendar for 6 months. We're so looking forward to the test. And Friday evening they call you, we have like a deployment problem, and can we kind of do this 1 week later? It's like, fuck, you know you can't. It's Q4. We have no resources next week. We have them this week for you. Oh, that's like bad, because then we can't do the test at all. And it's like, thank you for absolutely nothing, because we planned for this thing with like 5 people on the job, and this is going to cost us real money. There's not much you can do against that except for having like a waiting list, and that's kind of a luxury good. But eventually this is not going to hurt you anymore. But this is going to hurt you a lot in the beginning, and it sucks. Like, I was close to raging and destroying the apartment at home when this kind of call came in, because that meant that I could pay less money to my team, and we would all lose, and there was few to no mitigations to that. Unfortunately, I wish I had a better recipe for that. Or you have a complex contract where even this is being managed and ruled, and you get a little bit of money. It depends on how much overhead you want to have. But you are gonna run into this kind of asshole. And my favorite one, the last one, the pay you once, ask for your help forever. And that is like the risk when you have your clients on Slack. Because they will chat you up day and night. And they will expect responses from you day and night. And if you tell them, look, the budget is used up, it's just this one tiny question. Yeah, but the budget is really used up. Just one more question. And it just like keeps on going like this. And eventually, you need to do something against this. The problem is, as mentioned, these assholes will come, they will haunt you, it's gonna suck, it might even break your neck, so you better know what kind of asshole's gonna come at you. And I'm pretty sure if we have a beer afterwards, then this list is gonna grow, because you probably know your own kinds of assholes, and we can enrich this list, and maybe for the next revision of the talk, your type of asshole might be on this slide as well, who knows? But in most situations, when they come at you and when they haunt you, it's not even your fault. Don't think it's your fault, it's not your fault. Grow a thick skin, realize it's their fault, not yours, in most situations. The way against those, the way to deal with them is pretty much to have very clean documentation. We're getting back to being well organized, writing everything down that is of relevance, never agreeing to anything via the phone, because this is going to screw you over. Get absolutely everything in writing. Be polite, but be clear. Don't kind of beat around the bush if the client wants something is like vague or like not really clearly defined. Tell them, look, this is weird and we can't really tell you anything about this. You have like this magic mystery box source code out there with a number of lines of code that we don't know. We can't do it. You have to give us information. Set clear borders. Clients can behave like 5-year-olds. Sometimes I think it is 5-year-olds sitting there with just like very male voices, but they can behave like 5-year-olds. And you have to kind of compensate for that as well. And the most important thing, and that is most likely something that you can't do in the very beginning, so you have to sweat it through, but the most important thing is realize when it's enough. And when it's enough, and the client gave you enough hell, enough torment, fire them. Just like fire them. Just like tell you know what? We're not going to work with you anymore. The test next week is going to be cancelled. We don't really care. Yes, it's helpful for us, but it's more helpful for you. Don't call us again. Bye-bye. We put you on the blacklist. Maintain a blacklist. Fire clients. The client is not the king. If they screw you up too much, do the needful and throw them out. We did this once. That's actually a couple of weeks ago. We did this multiple times, but just like once a couple of weeks ago, when we had a test coming, and the test was supposed to happen on Monday, and it was a Thursday. And the new CTO of the company reached out and says like, yeah, I read the pen test report from you from last year, and I noticed that we had like a terrible bug back then because we deployed our private keys in the JavaScript in the compressed source. And yeah, we did this, and I was shocked that you didn't find this. And it's like, interesting. First, that's a stupid bug. I don't really know if you would look for that in compressed JavaScript. We usually don't look for private keys in there. Now we do. And then I looked at my documentation, which was seamless. And I realized we didn't pen test them last year. We pen tested them 2 years ago. So he's trying to bullshit me. And I wrote a bank, not telling him that. And it's just like, look, can you kind of tell me what exactly was there that you did? Like, can you prove to us that the test environment that we looked at back then was indeed having private keys in compressed JavaScript through like a deployment script failure? And he was like, no, I don't have this proof anymore. I just wanted to kind of point you in the right direction, so I'm trying to help you. And also, I don't like the tone. And you should really start auditing JavaScript. I was like, what? I was like, dear friend, you can go fuck yourself. And the test next week is canceled. Someone else is going to get the slots. Bye-bye. Tell your CEO buddy and yourself that you're not going to write this again because you're not on the blacklist. Like, this behavior doesn't fly. Needless to say, there was a couple of more mails being exchanged, and the tone was really, really bad. But at this particular moment, the point was reached to say, like, fuck off. Never again. Just like, go to whatever other company, do it with them, but not with us. We're going to remember your name. We're going to remember your smell. It feels so good if you do this finally. If you have like a client that kind of torments you over a long period of time, and then you finally fire them, oh my god, that feels so good. I can't describe the feeling. You have to try it at some point. Seriously, try it out. Anywho, the most important thing is, and that's something that only comes with experience, and that is to have like a good nose for telling them apart early on. Tell the good ones apart from the bad ones. Have a good smell, have a good feeling about the client. Usually it kind of starts with the briefing meetings or with the material that they deliver you or just with the general questions that they ask you. If you have a bad feeling then already and then everything's already unorganized and you have to compensate for them being 5-year-olds, then you can kind of imagine how the invoicing process is going to go. It's going to be a nightmare. So maybe just like step back early on and say like, we don't have capacity. I'm going to refer you to my partner companies. I mean, if it's your actual partner companies, you don't do that, but you just refer them somewhere else. Then they are happy and you're happy and you don't have to be bothered with them. That's going to be fine. But this takes time to actually get there and develop this kind of nose, develop this smell and realize this client is bad, but the rest is good. That will happen over time. Another thing that is extremely important, I was just referring to it, partner up. I know a lot of security companies who kind of think that it's a great idea to be a silo, or a silo, I'm not sure how you pronounce it actually. You know, this kind of contained tank of just like keeping all your knowledge and holding onto it and never sharing anything and never partnering and just like basically being a lone wolf. And that doesn't work. Lone wolves won't survive in the field. They won't survive in the market. Or at least it's hard. It's much harder to survive as a lone wolf than partnering up with others. We started partnering up with other companies from Berlin about a couple of years ago, like 5 years ago, and it was awesome. It was the best experience. It was like, hey guys, do you want to join us in this project because we need help? We can't handle this part. And so we're like, yeah, sure, why not? It worked smooth. It was awesomely well. Everything was well defined. It was just technical people wanting the same thing, wanting to make good business together, turning something around, and it worked. And then we kept doing this, and it was awesome. And meanwhile, we do this pretty much, not every time, but once a month at least. We partner with someone, they're happy, we're happy, the client is happy, everybody wins. There is no need for like a tank in which you isolate your knowledge, share it, spread it, because you get something back. Many people don't see this and think like, ooh, our field is so mysterious, we need to kind of sit on the very important knowledge that we have. Fuck it, it's not. Just like share the stuff, other people find critical bugs as well, and be open with others, and get them on board, and do stuff with them. It really is beneficial for pretty much everyone. And, most importantly, it's going to help you with the biggest dragon to slay. And the biggest dragon to slay, that's Q4. Who knows what I mean with that? Yeah, they're very, very good. Q4 is the worst. Because in Q4, everybody has budget, and no one has any idea how to spend it. So they're going to burn it for something. And that's usually a pen test. I mean, this gives a great feeling about the value of our work, right? Anyway, usually that's a pen test. And every client usually comes at you in December, October, November, latest October. So it's like, oh, we have this huge project, like 50 person days, and we have to do this before December. Can you fit us in? It's like, Jesus, no, never. Because Q4 is always full. Q4, you will always run at 110%, and you're really, and I mean it, you're close, or you can get close to burning out, and that would be catastrophe. But partnering up kind of relieves the pressure a little bit, because you can share the work with others. You can let some people do this, let some other partners do that. They can give you some of their stuff. And pretty much everybody then does what they're best at and doesn't have to force something. And it makes things much, much easier. Like, we started doing this, as mentioned a while ago. I'm never going to go back, because that is the model to go for, especially if you want to stay a small company. So, this is going to be hard. But not just Q4 is going to be hard, like the other quarters can be hard as well. Q4 is usually the hardest, as we all know. But in all those Qs, you can still burn out, and that's a realistic danger. One of the guys on my team was there and was terrifying. Another one came really close. Me, myself, came really close. Like, actually just like sitting on my chair and just sobbing, just like not being able to do anything anymore. That goes quickly. That can happen. That usually hits you as a surprise, and it sucks. And it takes weeks, if not more, to get back from there. And that's really, really hard. And the more pressure you have, the more people you work with, the more projects you're doing, this can go faster. And that is very, very dangerous. So you need to respect your own capabilities and your own limitations, as did I. And I had to learn it not really the hard way, but close. I was very, very close. And my friend, he had to learn it the hard way. Another friend had to learn it the hard way as well. And then he was gone for many, many months. We wouldn't even be able to contact him. And I think now he's like slowly getting back. And this is dire, because this can kill your company. So better don't get there in the first place. You need to learn over the years what kind of amount of work is the right. What is too much? What is too little? Actually, too little doesn't exist, because then you can still do research. But anyway, you need to learn what is too much. And that might be hard. You will, of course, be able over time to learn to endure more stress. So I believe that, for example, the amount of work that I'm doing right now, after 11 years of running this business, is significantly more than the amount of work that I got done in the very first years. Naturally, because I learned new tricks, I got myself organized, the team got itself organized, we got processes and templates for this and that, and things are just running smoothly. And if things are running smoothly, you can do more stuff, and you can take more projects on, and so on and so on. But this takes time. You need to give it that time. Don't start 100% right away. Give yourself the time to learn where your limitations are. Not everybody's a racehorse. Not everybody's a workhorse. Not everybody is some other kind of animal. You need to kind of find out what kind of animal you are, how you can take the stress, how you can turn it best into productivity and then make something out of it without burning. And you will notice that at some point, a challenge that you couldn't solve 2 years ago or 4 years ago, today you can solve them in 5 minutes, easy GG. And you're like, oh wow, I actually grew on that. That's pretty cool. So let's continue that course. But give it time and take the time to grow a thicker skin, because that's key. No one wants you to burn out. No one wants you to go crazy or go nuts or go emotional and have personal drama on the internet. No one wants that. It's not necessary. It's not helping. And the only thing that heals here is the right dose and the right time. As mentioned, can't stress enough, don't burn out. Watch yourself. Ask others if they see indicators in you burning out. I did this for a while. It's like, my wife, for example, told me, hey, I noticed that you're like very erratic and doing this and doing that. You should really take care, have a day of vacation. It's like, yep, you might be right. I should have a day of vacation. Do it if someone tells you. Rely on others to help you. Rely on your peers, because that might kind of get you around this particular point. And you're not special. You're not invulnerable. I'm not special. I'm not invulnerable. Like, everybody can have this particular phenomenon. And if you have it, it's hard to get back from that. So, I think I'm already over time. I'm very sorry. The talk before me was a bit shorter, so I can be a bit longer, I reckon. To sum it up, because we're already close to the end. Be organized if you want to create your own security company. Your first boss enemy are yourself, because you're likely not experienced with being super organized, and that takes time. I was a mess at the beginning, but meanwhile, I think I have it figured out at least as much as I need right now. You need to find your tools, you need to find your rhythm, and then at some point you're there and say, no, I'm ready. Most importantly, be more organized than your clients, because your clients will be very, very, very unorganized. And I just like this. It's ridiculous how unorganized some clients are. And you have to compensate for that. You're the sponge. You're the membrane between your team and that client. You have to compensate for all that, and that causes stress, and stress causes burnout, and so on. So learn to deal with that. Expect the worst from your client. Maybe it's good, but then it's better, but it's safer to expect the worst. And of course, be open. I mean, the next crazy-ass email that is terribly formatted and contains weird gibberish might be indeed an interesting opportunity. I received one of these emails once, and I was bored, and was like, yeah, let's respond to that. What came out was like a pretty cool trip to India, and a lot of good relations coming from there, just because I responded to that one mail where I was close to putting into the spam folder. But something amazing came out. So that might also happen. Look at the weird requests. Sometimes they're not as weird as they look at first, and cool clients come out. Be open and be ready for interesting stuff to happen. Be, however, also strict. When a client goes too far, tell them. Don't let them go through this. Discipline them. It's important. Because if they realize that you can be fucked with, they will do exactly that. And they will continue doing that and will make work. Be careful with this. Draw a clear line. Say like, until here and no further, because otherwise we're going to fire you. Be stubborn. If something is missing and the client is like beating around the bush or giving like vague information or something looks fishy, speak up. Let them know as early on that something is not working, that with what they give you, you cannot deliver the expected coverage and the expected level of quality. And then they get it. It's like, oh yeah, sure, we want to deliver quality, of course. So here's the material. That really works. Play it back. Make them realize that when they give you shit material, that it rains down on them, not on you in the end. You look stupid at first, but if they think it through, it's them causing the bad results. And they need to understand that, and they will understand that. And last but not least, of course, be brilliant. Don't be data-driven. Don't be money-driven. You're gonna make money anyway. Like, this is gonna come automatically if you have a company. So, be driven by brilliance and by actual value that you want to deliver. Try to deliver a little bit more value than your competitor, a little bit of an extra, a little bit of more quality, and then they will come back to you, they will recommend you, it's going to be word of mouth, and at some point you're not going to have a marketing department, or you never had one in the first place, and that's great. Because factually, if you're good, you don't need marketing. Sorry if that hurts a little bit. Be mindful. If things get over your head, take a step back, go on a vacation. Just like say, all right, I have to go for 3 days. Just like, I don't know, somewhere out there, some farm or some spa or some whatever you prefer, whatever rocks your boat. Just be gone for 3 days. That's fine. You come back rested, and everything changes. Try to not go into this rabbit hole of getting emotional and be extreme under pressure and just like fight back and do this and scream and run. Don't do it. It's not going to work. It's not going to yield. Just take a couple of days off. I do it in a way that I do like lots of small and short vacations, not just like one big one, just like several small ones scattered over the year, and that works for me. Maybe for you something else works. But be careful, be aware of your own limitations, and realize that this whole thing is not a game, but it's also not life and death. So you don't have to make it life and death. You just have to chill and think about yourself and your family or your loved ones, and consider that they're there as well, and that you need to make decisions accordingly. So, I think we're almost done. Now you might have some pointers, and as mentioned, this is just anecdotal evidence. This is just like a couple of points that I believe worked well for myself, and they might also work well for you if you have the intention of creating your own Infosec community and to build up your own thing, however it may look. It's like a small booth with 5 people, or 20 people, or doing this, or doing that. That's completely up to you. But I hope that this presentation gave you a couple of pointers, like the things that work for me, maybe also work for you, and that would be great. Needless to say, your mileage might vary, but maybe there's some input from me, for you, from this presentation that you can take, and maybe next year, when we meet again at whatever conference or whatever location, maybe you can come up and say like, hey, I created my own thing, and it's awesome. It was tough at first, but then it got awesome, and that would be great, because that would be my intention. If you don't like what you're doing right now, or have the feeling that there's more you can do, try it. It's not hard. If I can do it, you can do it as well. It's actually not that hard. And if you mind and respect a couple of things, then you might be there in no time. Just remember, and I don't want to make like too much politics here, if you hate being an employee, you don't have to be an employee. You can make your own company. It's not that hard. And it's likely going to be very, very cool. And I think it's safe to say that we're right now in the fat years of Infosec. Like, everybody needs a pen test. Everybody needs to know. There's GDPR and hackers everywhere in Russia and China. Oh my God. Everybody has the feeling that this is the hot thing right now. Everybody needs a pen test. There are so many potential clients out there. It's incredible. It's bizarre. All the companies in the world, all the Infosec companies in the world cannot satisfy the need that is out there. So if you want to do it, don't do it in 10 years. Do it now, because now we have the fat years. And you should make use of them. It's a chance. And maybe it stays, maybe it goes away, but now is a very good time in my opinion, so think of it. Maybe it's your thing, maybe it's gonna rock, maybe not, but you can decide. And you should. Try not to become a whale, because there's enough whales out there. With that I'm referring to like the big companies. It's very easy to build like these big template companies, because you just need like a couple of economics people and a couple of suits, and then you're pretty much there. Try to build something that's agile, that's small, that's lean. Don't become a whale, become a hornet, be able to sting. A whale eventually kind of drifts at the beach and then the birds eat it. And I wanted to put a photo of that in here, but then I was like, ugh, no. So I took the hornet, and that's like a bit nicer than the rotting whale. Like, no one wants to see the carcass of a rotting whale. So don't become one, because it doesn't make any sense. It's much more fun to stay small. It's much more fun to stay professional with a small, focused team where everybody knows everybody knows about their skills, and they deliver exactly the work that they want to deliver, because then everybody's happy. No one does bullshit work. And that only can happen if you stay small, if you stay the hornet, and not the whale. Don't be data-driven. I mean, everybody's data-driven right now. Don't be yet another suit. I'm not judging here, but I think we have enough suits in the field. So try to do something different. Try to deliver value. Don't optimize your numbers, because everybody else can do that. There's Excel sheets who do that for you. Don't become an Excel sheet. Be someone who tries to actually deliver value, who tries to help your clients, help your team, and then help yourself, because then you're automatically going to create quality, and that's in the end what counts. And if you create quality, people will come to you, and it's going to be easy GG. So maybe now you have the feeling that it's time to do something. Maybe not, and that's also fine. But at least I hope to have given you some inspiration for that. And I think BSides is quite a good, I think it's a good avenue for that. I hope so. Maybe it will be different at different conferences. But anyway, I hope it was useful to you. And good luck out there if you do it. If you have any questions, ask me via email, because I'm happy to help. I think there should be more small Infosec companies, more boutiques. And if you want to become one of them and have some questions that you can't figure out yourself, ask me. I'm happily going to help. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions? Anyone has any questions that they don't want to send via email? Yes, there's a question.
I work in a country that is where the pen testing market is sewn up by a cartel. I don't want to name that country. And also a government department that's trying to get in on everything. What would your advice be for people looking to engage in that environment? And what's your thoughts on the value of badges?
Move somewhere else. Move to Berlin, it's awesome. Move to Lisbon, it's awesome. Move to Spain, to France. I mean, there might be other reasons to do so, but this thing alone, if you want to escape like a clogged market or a market where you don't have a chance to kind of convince people and clients with quality, then just move away. This is Europe. You can do stuff. Move anywhere. Like the world is big.
Now you've depressed Steve.
I know.
How is that from Mars?
Have you ever had to deal with the fear that, for example, you've got now 5 colleagues in your team and you have to pay them? And if you're looking at your calendar and you see like, oh, there's not enough projects and the bank account or the money on the bank account is going down, have you ever had you to deal with this fear or how did you compensate it?
In the beginning, yes, and it was a very pressing fear. But you can deal with it by, in the first place, not having that big of a team. First, it was a one-man show. Then I realized I couldn't handle it myself anymore with one person, so I got another one. And that was perfect. And then we realized that we couldn't handle this anymore, so we got a third person. Then we got an intern. The intern was awesome, so we took him. And so on. Grow organically, because then this is not a problem. And I know that there's still like a remainder of fear that at some point, like the project situation might collapse. Might happen. Didn't happen so far. And I think it won't, just referring back to the fat years. Right now, as a security company, if you don't have any work, something is going wrong. You need to look into this, in my opinion. Now, to answer your question more precisely, grow organically, grow with the rate that you can afford. And then this is unlikely to happen. And the fear is not that big, but I know the fear and I had the fear and it sucks. But in this particular situation, the only way out is the way through, I reckon.
Anyone? Any more questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Mario, for coming over.